Have you ever walked into a room feeling confident, grounded, sure of who you are, and then after talking to one person, you suddenly start doubting yourself? Nothing happened, no argument, no insult, but somehow your energy is gone. Tat feeling, that quiet emotional shift, that's what many people call the evil eye. But today, we're not talking about superstition. We're talking about emotional reality, the kind that affects your nervous system, your confidence, and your self-worth. Because sometimes the most dangerous negativity doesn't shout, it whispers, it smiles, it stands next to you in photos. And if you don't learn to recognize it, you will keep shrinking yourself just to make other people comfortable. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't just recognize these signs, you'll know how to protect your peace without guilt. And slowly, you start believing life is heavy when really it's the environment that is. Here's the hard truth. Not everyone who claps for you is happy for you. Some people watch you not with admiration, but with comparison. And comparison, when mixed with insecurity, becomes silent resentment. You cannot heal in places that constantly make you question your worth. But here's the empowering part. Recognizing this isn't about blaming others. It's about choosing environments where your nervous system can relax, where your growth is celebrated, where your joy is safe. Because your energy is sacred. Not everyone deserves access to it. Not everyone can handle your light. And not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next level. Protecting your peace is not arrogance. It's emotional maturity. And the moment you stop trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you is the moment your life gets lighter. Watch who makes you feel small. Watch who feels threatened by your shine. And most importantly, watch how your body feels around people. Your soul already knows. Listen. Expandi 1 KN 600 and there is a strange feeling we don't talk about enough, the feeling of being seen, but not in a warm way. Not in a way that says, I celebrate you. Instead, it feels like being scanned, measured, silently evaluated. You're in a conversation, nothing openly negative is happening, yet your shoulders tense, your voice changes, and you suddenly become hyper aware of yourself. You start editing your words. You laugh differently. You shrink without realizing it. That emotional shift is not imaginary. Your body is responding to perceived judgment. Human beings are wired for social safety. Our nervous system is constantly asking one question, am I safe here? And safety doesn't just mean physical protection. It means emotional acceptance. When someone carries envy, resentment, or insecurity, they often project it nonverbally through micro-expressions, tone, interruptions, or backhanded responses. Consciously, you may not register it, but subconsciously, your system does. That's why you walk away from certain interactions feeling drained even when nothing bad happened. This is what people often label as negative energy or the evil eye, but psychologically, it's emotional projection. When someone struggles with their own self-worth, they may look at others through a lens of comparison. Instead of seeing you as a person, they see you as a reminder of what they lack, what they wish they had, or where they feel behind. That internal discomfort has to go somewhere, and often it leaks out in subtle ways. A flat reaction to your excitement, a quick subject change when you share good news, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Your body picks up on these signals faster than your mind can rationalize them. Your heart rate shifts, your energy drops. You feel the need to explain yourself more, to justify your choices, to prove your worth. That exhaustion you feel afterward isn't random. It comes from self-monitoring. You are no longer simply being, you are managing how you were being perceived. There's also something deeper happening. We mirror emotional states. When you're around grounded, secure people, your nervous system relaxes. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts flow. But when you're near someone internally unsettled, your system unconsciously matches that tension. You carry emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. It's like walking into a room filled with invisible static. You can't see it, but you feel it buzzing in your chest. We often dismiss this experience because there's no clear evidence, no harsh words, no obvious conflict. So we tell ourselves we're overthinking. We ignore the tightness in our stomach and the mental fog afterward. But awareness of this dynamic is not paranoia, it's emotional intelligence. It's understanding that not all interactions are neutral exchanges. Some are energetic negotiations where you end up paying more than you realize. And here's the important part, recognizing this doesn't mean labeling others as villains. Many people who project this way are hurting, insecure, or unaware of their impact, but their unhealed feelings still affect you. Compassion does not require self-abandonment. You can understand someone's struggle and still acknowledge that being around them costs you too much emotionally. The moment you begin trusting how your body feels around people, you step into a different level of self-respect. You stop forcing comfort where there is quiet tension. You stop explaining away emotional exhaustion as coincidence. You start noticing patterns, who leaves you lighter, who leaves you heavy. And that awareness is powerful because you can't protect your peace from something you refuse to see. There is a quiet discomfort that rises in people when they feel unsure of their own worth, and one of the most common ways it shows up is through projection. Projection happens when someone cannot sit with their own insecurities, so they unconsciously place those feelings onto someone else. Instead of saying, "I feel behind," they act as if you are the problem. Instead of facing their self-doubt, they question your choices. Instead of processing their envy, they minimize your progress. And if you're not aware of this dynamic, you may start carrying emotions that never belong to you. Insecurity is not loud at first. It rarely announces itself with obvious hostility. It often hides behind politeness, sarcasm, or indifference. Someone may smile while subtly dismissing your ideas. They might joke about your ambitions in a way that makes everyone laugh, including you, but leaves a small bruise inside. They may act uninterested when you share something meaningful, then suddenly become critical or competitive in the same area later. These behaviors are not random. They are emotional defense mechanisms. When a person feels internally unstable, your growth can feel like a threat to them. Your confidence highlights their self-doubt. Your discipline reminds them of their procrastination. Your happiness exposes their dissatisfaction, and instead of using that discomfort as motivation to grow, some people try to reduce the discomfort by reducing you. If they can convince themselves that your success is luck, your confidence is arrogance, or your joy is fake, they don't have to face the harder truth that they feel stuck. Projection is powerful because it distorts reality. Over time, you may start second-guessing yourself. You might feel guilty for being proud. You may tone down your excitement before sharing good news. You might even delay opportunities because you don't want to make someone else uncomfortable. That is the hidden cost. Their unprocessed insecurity slowly shapes your behavior, and you begin shrinking to maintain emotional harmony. What makes this dynamic so confusing is that the person projecting often doesn't realize they are doing it. To them, their reactions feels like honesty. Their coldness feels like mood. Their competition feels like motivation. But underneath it all is comparison, and comparison, when mixed with low self-worth, becomes resentment. You can feel this energy in subtle ways. Conversations feel like interviews instead of exchanges. You explain your choices more than you want to. You leave interactions replaying moments, wondering if you said too much or seemed too confident. That mental replay is a sign you were in a space where you didn't feel fully accepted. Your nervous system was scanning for approval. Understanding projection changes everything. It helps you stop internalizing every reaction. Not every cold response means you did something wrong. Not every dismissive comment reflects your value. Sometimes you are simply standing in front of someone who is at war with themselves, and you became the mirror they didn't want to look into. This awareness also invites compassion, but with boundaries. You can recognize that someone's behavior comes from their pain without allowing that pain to shape your identity. Their insecurity is their responsibility to face. Your responsibility is to stay connected to your truth. When you stop absorbing projections, you stop living inside someone else's emotional storm. You return to your own center, where your worth is not up for negotiation. You know that feeling when a conversation ends and you can't explain why you're so tired. Nothing dramatic happened. No argument, no raised voices, no obvious tension. And yet, your chest feels heavy. Your mind is cluttered, and all you want is silence. That kind of exhaustion isn't physical, it's emotional depletion. It happens when an interaction quietly pulls more out of you than it gives back. Emotional energy is real. Every conversation is an exchange. With the right people, that exchange feels balanced. You feel seen, heard, and accepted. You don't have to perform. You don't have to filter every sentence. You can laugh freely, speak openly, and leave feeling lighter than when you arrived. That's what emotional safety feels like. But when someone carries envy, judgment, or unresolved negativity, the exchange changes. You start working instead of connecting. You may notice yourself over-explaining small things, justifying your decisions, monitoring your tone, watching their facial expressions to see how your words land. You're not relaxed, you're managing the room. That self-monitoring takes energy. Your brain shifts into a subtle form of defense mode, scanning for disapproval, adjusting in real time. It's like running an emotional background app that never shuts off. This kind of exhaustion is also tied to emotional invalidation. When you share something important and the response is flat, dismissive, or redirected, your system registers that your experience wasn't held with care. You might brush it off in the moment. It's not a big deal, but your nervous system doesn't brush it off. It stores the effort it took to stay composed, to not react, to not show disappointment. That stored effort becomes fatigue. There's also the weight of unspoken tension. Some people carry internal conflict they haven't processed, and it leaks into interactions. They may interrupt often, respond with subtle sarcasm, or give advice that feels more like correction than support. You feel slightly on edge, like you're walking across a floor with hidden cracks. Even silence feels loaded. Your body tightens without permission. What makes this draining dynamic confusing is the lack of visible conflict. If someone insults you, At least the problem is clear. But when negativity is subtle, you start questioning yourself. Maybe I'm just sensitive. Maybe I'm overthinking. That self-doubt adds another layer of exhaustion, because now you're not only carrying the interaction, you're carrying the confusion about it. Emotionally draining people often take more than they give in conversation. The focus circles back to them. Your stories get shortened, theirs get expanded, your feelings get analyzed, theirs get accommodated. Over time, you become the emotional container, the listener, the regulator. And while empathy is beautiful, one-sided emotional labor is costly. Your body is honest about this cost. You might feel a headache forming, a drop in mood, or a sudden desire to withdraw. That's not rudeness. That's your system asking for recovery. It's saying, that took something from us. Ignoring that signal leads to burnout in relationships, where you feel obligated to show up but resentful afterward. Recognizing emotional exhaustion as a sign of imbalance is not about labeling others as bad people. It's about noticing patterns. Who do you feel calm around? Who do you feel drained around? Your energy is information. It tells you where connection flows naturally and where it requires self-sacrifice. And the more you listen to that information, the less likely you are to keep giving from a place that's already empty. There's a subtle kind of dismissal that hurts more than open criticism, because it steals your joy in the exact moment you're trying to share it. You finally gather the courage to say something good about your life, an achievement, progress, a step forward, and instead of warmth, you're met with a lukewarm response, a short nod, a forced smile, a quick subject change, or the classic phrase that sounds harmless but feels heavy, must be nice. In that moment, something shifts inside you. Your excitement drops mid-sentence. You start minimizing your own news. It's not a big deal. I just got lucky. It's probably nothing. You shrink your victory to make the space less uncomfortable. That reaction didn't come from nowhere. It came from feeling that your joy wasn't welcome. When someone consistently downplays your wins, it often reflects their internal comparison. Your success reminds them of where they feel they're lacking. Instead of celebrating with you, they subconsciously protect themselves by reducing the importance of what you've done. If your achievement is not that big, then they don't have to face why they haven't done something similar. It's not about you, but it still lands on you. You might hear responses like, let's see how long it lasts, or yeah, but that field is easy, or I did something like that years ago. On the surface, these comments seem casual. Underneath, they carry a quiet need to level the emotional playing field. Your moment of elevation creates discomfort, so it gets pulled back down. Over time, this pattern changes how you show up. You start editing your happiness. You hesitate before sharing good news. You tell certain people last, or not at all. You celebrate privately instead of openly. And without realizing it, you begin associating your success with guilt. You feel like you're too much just for doing well. This is emotionally confusing, because we're taught that love means support. So when support doesn't show up, we look inward for the problem. Maybe I'm bragging. Maybe I talk about myself too much. But healthy relationships don't make you feel guilty for growing. Real connection expands when one person rises. There's room for everyone at the table. The painful truth is that not everyone who cares about you knows how to be happy for you. Some people are only comfortable when you're struggling at the same level they are. Your growth disrupts the balance they're used to. So instead of adjusting their mindset, they try to adjust your shine. You can feel the difference between celebration and tolerance. Celebration sounds like curiosity, excitement, pride. Tolerance sounds like patience, politeness, and waiting for the topic to pass. One makes you open up more. The other makes you close down. Recognizing this dynamic isn't about resentment. It's about awareness. When your joy is repeatedly minimized, it teaches you to abandon parts of yourself. And no achievement is worth that cost. Your milestones deserve space. Your progress deserves acknowledgement. The people who are meant to walk closely with you will not feel threatened by your light. They'll feel inspired by it, and they'll clap without measuring themselves against your applause. There's a moment that happens so quietly you almost miss it. You're talking, sharing an idea, a dream, a story from your life, and halfway through you start pulling back. Your voice softens, your sentences get shorter, you laugh more than usual, like you're cushioning your own words. Nothing obvious was said, but something in the air told you it wasn't safe to fully show up. That's what it feels like when your confidence shrinks around someone. Confidence isn't just a personality trait. It's a nervous system state. When you feel emotionally safe, your body relaxes. Your posture opens. Your thoughts flow without heavy filtering. You don't rehearse every sentence before it leaves your mouth. But when you're around someone who carries judgment, envy, or subtle disapproval, your system shifts into protection mode. You become self-conscious instead of self-expressed. You might notice yourself seeking their approval without meaning to, watching their reactions closely, adjusting your opinions to avoid tension, agreeing more than you actually feel. It's not because you suddenly forgot who you are. It's because part of you senses that authenticity might come with a cost in this space. criticism, dismissal, or emotional distance. Over time, this pattern trains you to doubt your own voice. You replay conversations later, analyzing your words, wondering if you sounded foolish or arrogant. That mental replay is a sign you didn't feel grounded during the interaction. You were performing, not simply being. And performance is exhausting. People who cause this shrinking effect often do it subtly. A raised eyebrow when you share an idea. A sarcastic joke when you speak with confidence, interrupting you more than others. Correcting small details that don't actually matter. These micro moments send a message to stay small. Don't take up too much space. And even if your mind dismisses it, your body listens. What makes this especially painful is that you may start blaming yourself. Why am I so awkward around them? Why can't I just be normal? But your reaction isn't weakness, it's awareness. Your system is responding to an environment where you don't feel fully accepted. Confidence doesn't disappear randomly. It changes depending on emotional safety. Think about the people who make you feel at ease. Around them, you speak freely. You don't obsess over how you're coming across. You leave the conversation feeling like yourself, not like an edited version. That contrast is information. It shows you that confidence isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something that expands or contracts depending on the space you're in. When your confidence consistently drops around someone, it's worth paying attention. Not with blame, but with curiosity. What signals are you picking up? What parts of yourself feel unwelcome there? Shrinking may keep the peace in the moment, but over time it creates internal tension because you're abandoning pieces of your identity to maintain comfort for someone else. You deserve spaces where you don't have to calculate your presence, where your excitement isn't too much, your ideas aren't too big, and your personality doesn't need softening. The more you honor the places where you naturally expand, the less willing you become to stay where you feel yourself disappear. There's a complicated emotion that shows up when your life starts changing and the people around you stay the same. It's not pride. It's not pure happiness. It's guilt. A quiet, heavy guilt that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" You start achieving things you once prayed for, growing in ways you once hoped to, and instead of celebrating fully, part of you feels like you're leaving someone behind. This guilt doesn't come from nowhere. It often grows in relationships where your identity was formed around sameness. Same struggles, same habits, same limitations. There was comfort in that shared place. But growth changes the dynamic. When you evolve emotionally, professionally, spiritually, you begin operating at a different frequency. Your conversations shift, your priorities change, your tolerance for certain behaviors lowers, and not everyone moves with you. Instead of recognizing growth as natural, you may feel like you're betraying an unspoken agreement we stay the same together. So you dim your progress, you downplay your wins, you avoid talking about new opportunities. You make yourself smaller so the gap doesn't feel so obvious. You tell yourself you're being humble, but underneath it's fear of being seen as different, distant, or disloyal. Some people reinforce this guilt without saying it directly. They might joke about how you've changed. They bring up the past version of you as if that's the real one. They remind you of who you used to be in a way that feels less like nostalgia and more like an anchor. Their discomfort with your evolution becomes a silent pressure on you to stay familiar. But growth always creates distance somewhere. Not because you think you're better, but because you're becoming more aligned with who you're meant to be. And alignment naturally shifts environments, habits, and sometimes relationships. The painful part is that we confuse outgrowing with abandoning. We think choosing our development means rejecting people, when in reality it just means we're no longer meant to fit into old versions of connection. Guilt can also come from empathy. You see where someone is stuck. You understand their struggles. You remember when you were in the same place. And because you care, you feel responsible for their feelings about your progress. But caring about someone's emotions doesn't mean you have to manage them. You can love people and still move forward. You can have compassion without self-sacrifice. When guilt drives your decisions, you start living in reverse. You hesitate to take risks. You delay opportunities. You stay quiet about your dreams, all to protect others from feelings they must learn to face themselves. But shrinking your life will never expand theirs. Your stagnation doesn't heal their insecurity. It only teaches you to betray your own path. Real connection allows room for growth. It says, go, become more. I'll adjust, I'll support, or I'll bless you from afar. Relationships that require you to stay small to stay connected are built on comfort, not alignment. Feeling guilty for evolving is a sign you're stepping into new territory. It means your life is stretching beyond old limits. And while that stretch can pull at your heart, it's also proof that you're honoring who you're becoming. Growth isn't betrayal. It's a continuation of your story, and you are allowed to keep turning the page. There's a voice inside you that speaks before logic has time to form a sentence. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it just nudges. A slight pause in your chest, a tightness in your stomach, a thought that flickers and disappears, something feels off. That's intuition, and most of us were taught to ignore it. We override it with politeness, with benefit of the doubt, with explanations that make other people comfortable and ourselves confused. We tell ourselves we're overthinking, being dramatic, too sensitive. But intuition isn't drama. It's pattern recognition built from every experience you've ever had. Every tone shift, every look, every moment your trust was earned or broken. Your mind might forget details, but your nervous system remembers. Intuition often shows up strongest in subtle environments. A person says all the right things, but their energy doesn't match their words. You leave conversations replaying them, not because of what was said, but because of how it felt. You can't point to one big red flag, just a collection of small yellow ones. And because there's no clear evidence, you talk yourself out of your own perception. But here's the thing: your body reacts before your brain explains. You might notice you hold your breath around certain people. Your shoulders tense. You feel the need to watch what you say. That's information. Your system is detecting emotional unpredictability, judgment, or hidden tension. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It just makes you disconnect from yourself. Many of us were raised to trust logic more than instinct. We want proof, clear reasons, visible behavior. But emotional safety isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the absence of ease, the absence of relaxation. You can be in a room with no conflict and still not feel safe to be fully yourself. That feeling deserves attention. Intuition doesn't mean assuming the worst about people. It means staying curious about your own reactions. Instead of dismissing the discomfort, you can ask, what am I sensing? When do I feel this? What patterns have I noticed? This moves you from fear to awareness. Intuition without reflection becomes anxiety. Intuition with reflection becomes wisdom. The cost of ignoring that inner voice is slow self-betrayal. You stay in spaces longer than you should. You share more than feels right. You give chances past the point of peace. And each time you override your gut, your trust in yourself weakens a little. Rebuilding that trust starts with small acts, listening when something feels off, even if you don't have a perfect explanation yet. Intuition is not about predicting disaster. It's about protecting alignment. It guides you toward environments where you can exhale, speak freely, and feel steady in your own skin. It pulls you away from dynamics that require constant self-monitoring. The more you honor it, the clearer it becomes. You don't need dramatic evidence to respect your own discomfort. A whisper is enough. That quiet inner signal is one of the most honest forms of guidance you have, and learning to listen to it is one of the deepest forms of self-respect. There's a peculiar emptiness that settles over you in certain spaces, almost like the air itself has weight. It's not just tension from a hard conversation or stress from your day, it's something deeper. Your mind feels foggy, your thoughts slow, your heart feels heavy, and for no obvious reason, you feel restless. That's what it looks like when your peace disappears around someone. And unlike conflict, this isn't loud or confrontational. It's quiet, subtle, and insidious. Peace is not merely the absence of chaos, it's the presence of emotional safety. When you are in the company of people who respect your boundaries, celebrate your successes, and communicate with care, your nervous system relaxes. You feel grounded, confident, and clear. You don't have to measure your words or shrink your presence. But around certain people, all of that shifts. Even if nothing overtly bad is happening, your body senses disruption. Your system goes on high alert, scanning for micro-judgments, subtle criticisms, or unspoken comparisons. This loss of peace is cumulative. Each interaction chips away at your mental clarity, your emotional resilience, and your sense of safety. You may not notice it immediately. Instead, it builds quietly until you're exhausted, anxious, or even questioning your own worth. You leave a conversation replaying minor exchanges in your head, doubting your words or actions, wondering if you misread a glance or a tone. That replay is a sign your system knows it wasn't safe to fully exist there. People who erode your peace often do it without overt hostility. They might compete instead of connect, subtly dismiss your accomplishments, or inject tension with indirect comments disguised as humor or honest advice. Their inner turbulence leaks into the environment, and your system absorbs it whether you want to or not. Your energy becomes the invisible container for someone else's unresolved feelings. It's exhausting because it's not just emotional labor, it's uninvited emotional labor. Another layer is self-doubt. You start questioning yourself. Am I too sensitive? Am I imagining this? Should I just be nicer, softer, quieter? That internal dialogue is a side effect of absorbing someone else's negativity. And over time, it shifts how you show up in all your relationships. You might withdraw, mute your opinions, or dampen your enthusiasm just to avoid feeling this emotional weight. Peace becomes conditional on not fully existing around certain people. Recognizing when your peace is being eroded is essential because it's the first step in reclaiming it. Peace is not something you negotiate with others. It's a non-negotiable state that protects your mental and emotional health. When you notice how someone's presence consistently leaves you unsettled, it's not about labeling them evil or bad. It's about respecting your own system. Emotional safety is a boundary, not a judgment. Your peace is a compass. It tells you where you can grow, thrive, and show up as your true self. When peace disappears around someone, it's a signal to pay attention, to observe patterns, honor your feelings, and protect your energy. Because life doesn't have to feel heavy. Relationships don't have to drain you. And you don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Your peace is sacred, and learning to safeguard it is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can practice. There's a subtle pattern that emerges when you're around certain people, a pattern that doesn't always make sense at first, but over time becomes unmistakable. It's the quiet tension, the constant checking in with yourself, the nervousness you feel without knowing exactly why. This is the combination of the final two signs, your intuition warning you and your peace disappearing. Together, they create an internal alarm system that something in the dynamic is off, even if nothing is overtly wrong. Learning to recognize these signals is a crucial part of protecting yourself emotionally. Your intuition often speaks in whispers, not shouts. It shows up as discomfort, unease, or subtle anxiety in the presence of someone. You may not be able to explain why you feel this way. The words don't come, the evidence isn't obvious, but your body knows. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts race or stall. You replay interactions mentally, trying to make sense of something you can't fully see. That internal sense of warning is your nervous system recognizing patterns of behavior, energy, and emotion that are unsafe for your well-being. It's a deeply personal radar that exists to keep you aligned with environments that support growth rather than drain it. At the same time, when your peace disappears, it compounds the effect. Emotional exhaustion builds, clarity diminishes, and decision-making becomes heavier than usual. You leave conversations feeling off, questioning yourself and your own reactions. Even when everything appears normal on the surface, the invisible weight you carry tells you that the environment is not neutral. It signals that you are absorbing tension, judgment, or unresolved negativity from someone else. These subtle but persistent experiences aren't imagination. They're real markers of how your energy interacts with theirs. What makes these signs particularly challenging is that they are internal. There is no visible conflict to point to, no words that scream danger, just the quiet depletion of your mental and emotional resources. Most people ignore these warnings because they feel inconvenient, confusing, or dramatic, yet the signals are precise. When your intuition signals discomfort and your peace diminishes, your system is telling you that the dynamic is not supportive of your growth, confidence, or happiness. Your body is literally asking you to recalibrate your boundaries. Paying attention to these signals is not about labeling others as malicious. Many people who trigger these patterns are unaware of their impact, operating out of their own insecurities, fears, or unresolved pain. Compassion is possible, but it doesn't require that you remain exposed to continual energy drains. The key is awareness, understanding when someone consistently leaves you uneasy and unsettled, and learning to respect that internal warning. Over time, this practice strengthens self-trust. You begin to distinguish between healthy discomfort, challenges that promote growth, and unhealthy discomfort, patterns that diminish your well-being. When these two signs intersect, your intuition warning you and your peace vanishing, it is a call to action. Your energy, mental clarity, and emotional stability are valuable resources. Protecting them doesn't mean you are selfish. It means you are self-aware and committed to cultivating spaces where your confidence, joy, and growth can flourish. By listening closely to these internal cues, you can begin to surround yourself with relationships and environments that expand rather than contract your energy, that nourish rather than drain you. This is the ultimate practice of self-respect, emotional intelligence, and personal empowerment.